Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome to the NoDQ.com recap of AEW All Out 2020, which took place at Daly's Place in Jacksonville, Florida, with about 800 or so fans. According to people that were at the building, it was very humid. Humidity was at like 93%, something like that. Felt like 90 plus degrees in the building. And that unfortunately affected the crowd heat on this show. Although the last couple of Dynamites, I felt like even though there were more fans in the building, there wasn't quite as much noise coming through on television. But anyways, we'll talk more about that as the show goes on. This was a long pay-per-view, almost a 4-hour show, including the 1-hour kickoff. Actually 5 hours, because it went from 8 to almost midnight where we're at now, and then you had that 1-hour kickoff. A lot of wrestling, I think something like 9 matches. They added 2 matches to the buy-in, the kickoff show. Originally, Britt Baker and Big Swole were going to have their tooth and nail match on the buy-in, but fans were complaining about that, so AEW moved that match to the main card and added 2 matches to the buy-in. I'll go ahead and talk about the buy-in matches real quickly. Not much to say about them. We had Joey Janella versus Sir Pentago, and basically just your average AEW match that you might see on Dark. Janella picking up a win after losing to Chris Jericho in very quick fashion on Dynamite. The second match of the buy-in was Private Party versus Dark Order 3 and 4, aka Alex Reynolds and John Silver. Match was actually pretty darn good for a pre-show match, in my opinion. Unfortunately, I just don't care about the Dark Order, so it was hard for me to personally get invested in this match. Work was good, though. And it was actually 11 matches total, according to Jose. Well, apparently this is AEW's version of Wrestlemania. I'm not sure if it's double or nothing, since that was technically the first show, or if it was All Out, because All In was the very first show that led to the start of AEW. But anyways, Private Party picked up the win in this match with the gin and juice. I did enjoy the match for a pre-show match. It was pretty solid. Then we had our first match of the main card. The pay-per-view opened up with a rundown of all the matches, which honestly I felt was a little unnecessary. I think people buying the pay-per-view, they know what the matches are. They do not need a reminder of the matches, and especially when this show is going on pretty long, I think that it was unnecessary to do the rundown. Just do the little video packages before each match. I think that's enough personally. TJS, he is the JD of No DQ. That's his new moniker. TJS with the $2 super chat says, total waste of money, D-, boring show, regret buying. Do you guys agree or disagree with TJS? Leave a comment in the chat room. And by the way, if you guys would like to send in a super chat, please hashtag stick to the topic as we go through each match. If you want to talk about the main event via super chat, save it for the main event. It would be much appreciated. We had this first match with Big Swole and Britt Baker. It was a tooth and nail match. Basically, it was a cinematic match, kind of a cinematic match. It was an on-location match, let's put it that way, in Dr. Britt Baker's office, allegedly. Big Swole arrived, and Reba was the receptionist, and Swole ended up hitting her in the head with a clipboard. Hey, she was just trying to sign her in, you know. Why did Big Swole have to be a jerk? Anyways, Swole walked into one of the rooms and there was blood on the floor. I guess, you know, Britt Baker is like Isaac Yankem. She's insane or whatever. I don't know. We finally had the two of them clash and mix it up when Baker hit Swole from behind with her diploma. Why would she do that with her own diploma? Maybe it wasn't hers. Who knows? I would have to go back and watch the replay and try to look at the diploma closely. TJS with the $2 super chat says, LOL, I'll give me true thoughts at the end, he says. And then OG Crushes with a $2 super chat. Thank you for that. He says, JD is alone with no one. Why be like that, TJS? Ooh, a little response there to TJS. I'll let them hash it out in the chat room. I want to get back to this match. Reba was interfering at several points during the match. Baker tried to escape, running to the outside. Swole caught up with her, and they ended up on top of the Rolls Royce. And Reba was up there as well, and Reba ended up being thrown into the dumpster. Baker tried to escape again, went back into the office, and then Baker and Swole were fighting in one of the rooms with the chair. Baker tried to use a drill on Swole, but she missed, and she could not get the drill out of the chair. And then all of a sudden, Reba came in with a needle that contained a dose of Novocaine, and they seriously had Baker try to inject Swole with Novocaine, but it backfired, and Swole injected the Novocaine into Baker. Baker was losing feeling in her body, and then Swole put Baker to sleep using the laughing gas or whatever they use to put people out before the procedures. Big Swole picks up the victory. I mean, it was entertaining for what it was, but it was a bit over the top. But then again, these cinematic / comedy matches tend to be that way. It was basically a comedy match. So I'm sure it's not everybody's cup of tea. It was fine. It was silly, but I was okay with it. We had our next match, which was the Young Bucks versus the Jurassic Express. And this was a really good match, as you would expect from the Bucks. They always deliver on pay-per-view. Jungle Boy wanted to shake hands, but Matt slapped his hand away. Basically, the Bucks were still pissed off about Adam Page screwing them over, and they got this attitude now, I guess, teasing a heel turn. Bucks worked together to get some offense on Luchasaurus. And it went back and forth here. Jungle Boy got worked over by the Bucks, and then Luchasaurus got the hot tag. Luchasaurus did all of his big moves. And fortunately for Matt Jackson, Nick was there to make the save. Jungle Boy tagged back in. Bucks were able to regain control. And then Marco Stunt attempted to interfere. He ended up getting super kicked by Matt. Bucks went for the Dave Meltzer driver, but Luchasaurus made the save. And then Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy went for another cover, which was broken up. Then Luchasaurus went for a springboard flying crossbody all the way over the barricade to Nick, but Nick moved out of the way, and basically Luchasaurus took out half a dozen of the guys at ringside. The Bucks took advantage of Luchasaurus being out of commission. They tried to put Jungle Boy away. Jungle Boy kept kicking out, but eventually the Bucks were able to pin Jungle Boy with the BTE trigger. Fun match here. Good stuff from everybody. And once again, they protected Luchasaurus. I feel bad for Jungle Boy because I think pretty much every Jurassic Express match where they lose, it's Jungle Boy taking the fall. But I'm okay with that because I think there's still some real potential with Luchasaurus, and they have been protecting him in these tag team matches. So I will give AEW credit for that. Next up, we had the Casino Battle Royale. And in this match, they come out in groups, 4 groups, and then there's a 21st person who's the Joker. I'm not going to name all the people in the match. Well, I'll go ahead and say who the groups were. First group was Jake Hager, Butcher, Blade, Daniels, Trent, Ray Phoenix, and Pentagon. And second group was Kazarian, Will Hobbs, who's this pretty big guy. He was in there with Lance Archer at one point and Brian Cage and was looking quite impressive. Curious to see what's next for him in AEW. We had Chuck Taylor, Ortiz, Santana. Santana and Ortiz used their baton on Chuck to continue that feud between those teams. For trivia purposes, Greg Cherry, Jeff Meacham, Blade was the first person eliminated from the match. Third group was Ricky Starks, Brian Cage, Billy, don't call him Gunn because WWE owns the name, Pentagon, and Darby Allin. Allin got a pretty darn big pop when he came out. He had his skateboard. He used his skateboard as a weapon. Final group was Shawn Spears, Eddie Kingston, Butcher, Sonny Rose, and Lance Archer. Spears, when he came out, went over to the commentary desk at first. Sonny Kiss eliminated Jake Hager, interestingly enough, but then Cage eliminated Sonny. So pretty big moment there for Sonny to eliminate this MMA superstar Jake Hager. Matt Sydal was the Joker, the final participant. I do not think any of us on Team No DQ predicted Matt Sydal to be the mystery guy. Everybody had either Miro or another free agent. There were a couple of names I remember, but no Matt Sydal. He seemingly came out of nowhere. Unfortunately for poor Matt, he went up to the top. His first big spot in AEW, he was going for his patented shooting star press, but he slipped. He slipped on the top rope, crashed and burned. Fortunately, he was not badly hurt. He was able to continue on in the match, but yeah, that could have been a disaster. Fortunately, he was okay. It's unfortunate his first big moment was a botch, but hey, it is what it is. Hot, humid night in Florida. I guess the ropes were a little slippery. Archer ended up eliminating both Brian Cage and Hobbs at the same time. And I forgot to mention before that, you had a body bag brought into the ring. Ricky Starks was eliminated, but he brought in a body bag for his friend Brian Cage to use. Cage poured thumbtacks into the bag, put Darby Allin in the bag, zipped it up, and then tossed out Darby Allin onto the stage. Pretty creative elimination here, I must say. And then we were down to just a couple of guys left. Archer hit the blackout on Sydal, and Eddie Kingston eliminated Sydal. Jake Roberts then got his snake from the bag, which apparently Eddie Kingston is afraid of snakes. He was distracted. Archer picked up Kingston on the apron and tossed him all the way out onto Butcher and Blade to pick up the victory. Lance Archer wins the Casino Battle Royal, which means he will go on to challenge the world champion. Match was fine. It was entertaining. Maybe the weakest of these matches up to this point. But I do like Lance Archer winning, and I did predict him, figuring he would be the right guy to challenge for the title, rebuild him after he lost to Cody back at the Double or Nothing pay-per-view. So I do think that this was the right choice as far as the winner of this match goes. All right, now we have the Broken Rules match. Matt Hardy versus Sammy Guvara. Matt Hardy was in the football stadium where they had the stadium stampede. He was waiting for Sammy to arrive. Sammy showed up in one of those vehicles, the same one that Matt and Kenny Omega used to chase Sammy around. Sammy was trying to do the same thing to Matt, but he missed. And then they quickly ended up on this forklift, and there was conveniently a table right there, and everybody knew where this was going. they were going to crash through the table. And sure enough, Sammy speared Matt off of the forklift all the way down. However, they overshot the landing. They went past the table, and Matt basically smacked his head directly on the concrete. And Matt barely got up for the 10 count. It was essentially a last man standing match. Matt somehow got up, but clearly this was not selling because they tried to keep the match going, and Matt was just, as the saying goes, the lights are on, but nobody's home. He could not really do anything. The referee, Audrey Edwards, checked on him, and she threw up the X. The doctor, Dr. Sampson, came out, and they stopped the match. Announcers were confused. They didn't know what to say because in the stipulation of this match, if Matt Hardy lost, he would be gone from AEW forever. Announcers didn't even say what was going on here, like if Matt's career was over now. They just said the match was being stopped. Then all of a sudden, Matt did get to his feet, and he went after Guvara, and the match restarted. They restarted the match, but they pretty much went right to the finish. They climbed up this scaffold back in the building, and Matt ended up knocking Sammy off the scaffold, and Sammy crashed through this platform below and could not answer the 10 count. Matt Hardy wins your match, which had maybe a grand total of like 3 spots in the entire match because of the circumstances. Very controversial match, to say the least. Curtis Butler with a $2 super chat. Good to see Curtis in the chat room. He says, hello, Aaron. Glad you're here, Curtis. I know you were having some problems. Not sure if somebody banned him or what, but he is here. Matt was reportedly sent to the hospital after the match, and you had Rebby, his wife, going on Twitter and complaining about what happened, very upset. Yeah, this was a controversial match, to say the least. If Matt was legitimately concussed, then them continuing the match was very irresponsible. Tony Schiavone said that later on in the show, he said that the doctor asked Matt if he was okay, and Matt said yes, and the doctor cleared him. I'm not sure how that works. How can Matt Hardy, if he's concussed, how can he consent to being cleared to wrestle? So it's going to be something that people will debate and discuss. Not great publicity for AEW. Matt Hardy was trending, but if you click on his name, a lot of people very upset that they kept the match going. And it got to the point where a lot of people were tuned out of the rest of the show because they were legitimately concerned for Matt's well-being and upset about the match continuing, even though Matt was apparently concussed for real. Let's see here. We have a $5 super chat from Dylan Hensley. He says, were doctors supposed to stop the match even if Matt Hardy insisted on continuing? Well, the idea is that if Matt was concussed, he cannot consent to continuing the match. It's the doctor's responsibility to make a judgment call and not go by what Matt says. Because, yeah, Matt's attitude, he's old school. He's going to be like, I'm going to finish this. I'm not stopping. That's the mentality. Jeff Meacham says, some pretty please have Aaron read my message. What message is that, Jeff? I'm not even sure where the message is. Oh, here it is. Okay. Jeff says the handling of the Hardy and Sammy match pissed me off to no end. And with WWE originally saying skull fracture for Drew, both companies can F off. Jeff Meacham being real here tonight. And I have to say, it was tough for me to get back into the show after this, knowing what was going on with Matt, trying to get updates on what was going on. it was tough. It was definitely a controversial decision from AEW, the doctor, to keep the match going. And I mean, they did go right to the finish. However, the finish included them, Matt Hardy in particular, climbing up a structure when he apparently has a concussion. So yeah, that will go down as a controversial moment, maybe the most controversial moment in AEW up to this point. And now we have a trend here. We had Sammy Guvara throwing the chair at Matt Hardy several weeks back, which busted open Matt, and then we had this. So, yeah, Sammy Guvara certainly isn't going to be getting a lot of praise right now for hurting Matt 2 times in a very short period of time. Dylan Hensley with a $5 super chat says, Matt's injury did not ruin the show for me. Accidents happen. What ruined the show for me was all of the negativity and people complaining about AEW. Well, I'm sorry about that, Dylan. I mean, I will say this, people are legitimately concerned about Matt's well-being. And it's hard to get into a show when you know somebody's hurt for real. It is what it is. And I'm sure we're going to have some heated discussion in the chat room here. Jeff Meacham says, I haven't talked much about it with the No DQ Galaxy, but I've been dealing with that kind of stuff since the year before Aaron and I started working together, and I take it very seriously. Yeah. Again, guys, stay tuned to NoDQ.com for the very latest. Any further updates on the matter will be up on the site. Let's move on here to the AEW Women's Championship match. Hikaru Shida defending against Thunder Rosa. Pretty solid match here between the ladies. I enjoyed it. They had a stare down to start the match, and then they started trading blows. They went to the outside of the ring. Shida tried to set up a chair to use to jump off of, but Rosa beat her to the punch. And Rosa dominated most of the match. Shida would make a comeback every now and then, but Rosa would regain control. She gave Shida a DVD onto the apron, and then Shida made another comeback, and Rosa was on the outside on that staging area. Shida did this springboard Meteora to Rosa, and this was another scary moment where Rosa almost landed headfirst on the steps. And fortunately, she did not hit the steps, but she came close, and I cringed there for a second, thinking if she hits her head on that, that's going to be another bad moment here on this show. But fortunately, she did not go that far all the way to the steps. And hopefully AEW's not tempting fate with those steps there. It's kind of weird to have steps instead of an actual ramp. Hopefully nobody gets hurt one of these days bumping the back of their head on those steps. But anyways, Shida hit a Falcon Arrow. Rosa kicked out at 1, which surprised Shida. Shida was able to eventually pick up the win with the running knee strike and retained her championship. Rosa looked good in defeat here. Solid stuff here from the ladies, like I said. Next up, we had the Dark Order versus Team Dustin. Like the other Dark Order match, I do not care about the Dark Order. The only guy I really care about is Brody Lee. Even Colt Cabana, I'm kind of about at this point. The storyline here was that Dustin Rhodes was trying to get revenge on Cody's behalf, and Dark Order kept taunting him during the match, and when Dustin would try to get in the ring, the referee would stop him, and then the Dark Order would do the double teaming and the triple teaming and all that stuff. But eventually, Dustin was able to get it together. He got a hot tag. Him and Lee went back and forth, but then Lee hit the lariat and could have pinned Dustin. However, he tagged in Colt Cabana to finish off Dustin. Cabana went for a moonsault, but he missed, and then Dustin pinned Cabana with a roll-up. And of course, as you would expect, Brody was very unhappy about this. He shoved Cabana and he left, pissed off that he gave the match to Cabana to win, and Cabana dropped the ball. Backstage, Dustin cut a promo, and he said he left Dark Order in the dust. He got some payback. He dedicated the win to Cody, and then it was announced that Dustin would be getting a TNT title match with Brody Lee this Wednesday on Dynamite. Cody was very happy about that. Match was entertaining, but it was like a Dynamite match. Really wasn't necessary on this pay-per-view. Let's put it this way. I would have preferred a shorter pay-per-view, like a 3-hour pay-per-view. I know we're paying $50 for a pay-per-view. If AEW wants to do a 4-hour show, first of all, get rid of the buy-in. And if you're going to do the buy-in, maybe make it a half hour with no matches and do a 3-hour pay-per-view tops and start the pay-per-view at 7 Eastern. The 8 Eastern, doing this past midnight, I mean, I'm just complaining because I'm doing the live stream, but having to stay up for a wrestling show in general to midnight, it's a bit much. One thing I've really been enjoying about the WWE pay-per-views is that we can be done at 10:30 Eastern. I like that. And if I had to make a request to Tony Khan, let's start these pay-per-views earlier in the future. Please, Tony, please. It would be very nice. And make them a little bit shorter. We had our tag team title match, which for me was the most interesting match of the show, the one I was looking forward to the most. Kenny Omega and Adam Page against FTR. Tully Blanchard was there at ringside. Omega was going to start the match, but Page wanted to start, so Page was tagged in. Wheeler wanted a handshake, but Page went after him instead. This was all business, no friendship, which I like. I always get annoyed with the handshaking all the time. I want to see people with real grudges in wrestling. Obviously not real grudges, but good worked grudges where they hate each other's guts. I'm tired of all the constant handshaking that they do on the indie scene. So anyways, I liked this. Match was really good. FTR, they're great. Omega, Page, they're all great. This was one of those matches that the lack of a full-size crowd in an arena really hurt it. Like, the lack of crowd heat really took away from the big moments in this match, in my opinion. They were telling a great story. Power Packers 90 says, what a tag match. That storytelling they told, Page wearing Young Buck-like gear, Kenny not catching him and Kenny leaving in the heel door, great tag match. I really enjoyed it, but I think it went too long for a match without a crowd. I mean, they were trying to do this all-time classic, and everybody worked really hard, and they really delivered strong. But, I mean, it was basically out of their control because you had to work with what you had, and that's 800 people and 90-plus degree heat, and they were not making much noise during this match. If they were, it did not come through on TV. But from what I've heard, people at the building were pretty tired by this point, and the humidity was getting to them. But yeah, really good, well-worked tag team match with these guys. FTR worked over Page for a while, and FTR would try to bend the rules whenever they could, try to distract the referee and come in and do double teams. Omega came in, and Omega and Page started to work together for a while. Omega hit a Tiger Driver 98 onto Harwood for a near fall. Harwood put on an inverted figure 4, which was a big turning point in the match because it really hurt Omega's knee, and he was selling the knee. Even though he got out of the hold, he was selling the knee for the rest of the match. Page finally got a hot tag in. He did a swanton bomb from the top to the outside onto FTR. And then it went back and forth here. FTR gained the upper hand again. They did dueling top top rope headbutts to Page. Omega made the save. And then Omega and Page tried to finish it off. They went for the V-trigger buckshot lariat combo, but things did not go their way. Omega accidentally hit Page, and then Omega was sent to the outside. FTR hit a spike pile driver, which Page kicked out of. They then went for a second spike pile driver. They hit it. Omega tried to get back in the ring, but was too late. FTR scored the pinfall over Page and became the new AEW Tag Team Champions, ending the 230-something day reign. I'm not sure the exact number. Maybe somebody in the chat room can throw that number at me. But they were champions for a long time. After the match was over, the split of these guys really went into full gear. See what I did there? Jose Garza said 228 days. So after the match, Omega grabbed one of those announce tables. I'm not sure what they were, like a timekeeper table, something like that. One of those little tables, and he was teasing that he was going to use it on Page, but he did not do it. However, Page was just completely out of it, and he collapsed. Omega could have caught him, but he chose not to. He chose to let Page fall to the ground. Omega walked to the back in disgust. The Young Bucks were there. They tried to calm him down, but he stormed off. And as he was getting into his waiting car, he basically gave the Bucks an ultimatum. You're either with him or you're with Page. And then he took off. So there was our little cliffhanger to see where the Bucks are going to go. Will they go on Team Page or will they go on Team Omega? Storyline was great. Match was great. I just feel like the atmosphere with the crowd brought it down a little bit. And then, of course, the whole Matt Hardy thing made it hard to get into at times. I would still say overall, Young Bucks and Omega and Page had a better match. But they also had a red-hot crowd to really keep the momentum going and keep it hot. But yeah, this was still an awesome match. Really well done by everybody involved. Then we had Chris Jericho versus Orange Cassidy in the Mimosa Mayhem match. Before the match, Jericho cut this promo and said that Cassidy was an experiment to see if Jericho could make Cassidy a main event star. He said, yes, he did make Cassidy a main event star, but now the experiment is over. We had 2 tanks of mimosa on each side of the ring. Crowd woke up for the entrance of Chris Jericho. They were doing the Judas song very loudly, loudest they were the entire night. Unfortunately, Tony Schiavone, trying to talk about Matt Hardy and trying to defend the match continuing, Tony was talking over the biggest crowd moment of the entire show with them singing to Jericho's song. Damn it, Tony, you biffed it. So anyways, right when the match began, Jericho hit the code breaker. Cassidy kicked out. There was a table set up on the outside. There was a cocktail tray. Jericho smashed it over Cassidy's head. Jericho attempted to powerbomb Cassidy into the tank. And in this match, you had to fully submerge your opponent in the tank to win. You can't just put somebody's head in it or a foot in it. Their entire body had to go into it. However, Cassidy kept punching him, and Jericho had to settle for powerbombing Cassidy through one of those tables that were set up. Cassidy made a comeback when he grabbed a pitcher of mimosa and threw it into Jericho's face. Jericho was blinded. Cassidy rolled up Jericho with an inside cradle, but Jericho kicked out. And then Cassidy tossed Jericho over the top. Jericho almost fell into the tank, like 1 foot went in, but it's like Shawn Michaels. 1 foot, not enough. It has to be the entire carcass going into the tank. Jericho caught Cassidy, who was coming off the top with a code breaker, another near fall. Cassidy kicked out of that. And then they were on the top rope. Jericho was very close to falling off to the outside into the tank, I should say. He was hanging there. It was kind of like King Kong on the Empire State Building. Cassidy hit an orange punch. Jericho was dangling. Cassidy went for another one. He connected. And then Jericho fell off, took the bump into the tank, as we all expected. Cassidy wins the match. Jericho's there, laid out in the tank. And Cassidy gets the big win to win the feud, presumably, against Chris Jericho. Match was entertaining. It was fine. I know, again, it's not everybody's cup of tea, but I did enjoy it. I did think it was a fun match, and I wasn't sure that Cassidy was going to get the win. I actually went with Jericho, thinking Jericho would win, and then he would take the bump into the tank to give some heat over to Cassidy and give Cassidy a moment. But Cassidy flat out won the match. There you go. Orange Cassidy, is he on his way up to bigger and better things? We'll have to wait and see. We then had our main event, Jon Moxley versus MJF for the AEW World title. Moxley was coming through the stands, and I was thinking the other week, like, this could be a bad idea if he gets too close to the fans. And sure enough, you had a fan attempt to, I guess, touch Moxley or grab him. A security guy was right on the ball with this. He saw this fan before the fan really made his move. And the security guy grabbed the fan, pulled him away. Moxley checked on the guy for a second and then went into the ring and business as usual. MJF had MJF 2020 on his tights, red, white, and blue, the whole shebang. The storyline here was that MJF was trying to keep it in the ring and not go outside where Moxley will start brawling and it'll be in Moxley's favor. MJF tried to out-wrestle Moxley in the ring, and Wardlow was there distracting Moxley, helping MJF. MJF was able to slam Moxley's arm onto the apron, and Moxley's shoulder was hurt. He later tried to pop his shoulder back into place in the storyline. TJS with a $2 super chat says, they said Moxley has an advantage outside the ring. How? Because Moxley's a brawler. Moxley likes to fight on the outside, and it's just his thing. You know, he's more of a brawler than a mat wrestler. That's why he has the advantage. MJF made the mistake of going to the outside. He got a little bit too cocky. Moxley made a comeback. He sent MJF into the ring post, and MJF got busted open. The old Crimson Mask. They went back and forth. They traded blows. MJF tried to provoke Moxley into using the paradigm shift by spitting in his face. Hopefully that COVID test was not a false negative. But then again, they're touching each other and sweating on each other, so I'm guessing spit's not going to make much of a difference if MJF did have COVID. Moxley almost lost his cool, but he regained his composure, did not hit the paradigm shift. MJF countered with an armbar. Moxley managed to get his foot on the rope. MJF hit a heat seeker DDT, which Moxley kicked out of. They kept trading blows. MJF was trying every tactic he could in the heel playbook, pulling the referee in front of him, and then when the referee was distracted, he poked Moxley in the eye. Later, the referee was distracted again, and MJF hit a low blow. Still could not put Moxley away. MJF hit the crossroads. Moxley kicked out again. MJF was getting very frustrated at this point, and that's when Wardlow threw the Dynamite Diamond into the ring, and he got on the apron. Referee was distracted. However, before MJF could grab the ring and hit Moxley with it, Moxley hit the paradigm shift while the referee was distracting. So MJF's plan backfired on him. Hit the paradigm shift, which was technically illegal, but the referee didn't see it, to win the match and retain the title. I thought this was a really cool finish. D. Ross says it was disappointing. I thought the finish was great. The Moxley taking advantage of MJF's attempt to cheat and using it to his advantage. And Curtis Butler brought up Moxley pulling a Freddie Blassie by biting on the bloody face. That was great too. Main event was awesome. I thought it was a great match. Again, the crowd heat. If this was in front of a 10,000 seat arena with a full crowd, I mean, it would have been a match of the year contender. It was really well done by both guys. MJF totally held his own in a main event position. Game is on 100 with a $5 super chat says, if this is AEW's big show, where is the production value? This show looked second rate compared to any WWE pay-per-view. FTR winning shows former WWE guys on top of AEW. You knew FTR was going to win the titles here. You knew it was going to happen. And this is something that's been building up for years with the Young Bucks and FTR. I even said this when we did the predictions. You knew this was eventually going to lead. FTR coming in, they're going to fight Young Bucks for the titles. You knew it was going to happen, and you know it's going to happen. I don't have a problem with FTR winning the titles here. TJS with a $5 super chat says, last 3 matches alone were worth $50. Love the finish. Finally, babyface is smart. Is Mox as close to Austin as this era gets? Total badass. Wait a minute, TJS. I thought you were negative on this show earlier. Sarcastic there? I'm confused now. Overall, this show I thought was really good. I did have some issues with it, though. And by the way, Lance Archer and Jake Roberts were there at ringside, staring at Moxley. Oh, TJS says he was joking earlier. So I guess he was serious about liking the show. All right, there you go. TJS, he's not JD. My apologies. Virtue is JD. Dylan Hensley with a $5 super chat says, the production of AEW is fine. He says, I think WWE overdoes it with all the damn lasers and way too many LEDs. I mean, I guess it comes down to what your cup of tea is. Some people like the heavy production values. Some like a more stripped down look. I do agree that AEW, their production isn't going to match WWE. I mean, WWE, nobody can outproduce WWE with the production values. WCW couldn't do it. TNA can't do it. AEW's not going to do it. WWE has state-of-the-art production values. Nobody's ever denied that. My issues with the show. Number one, crowd. I'm happy we're seeing some fans back, but at least up to this point, it hasn't made much of a difference as far as the atmosphere of these shows go. And if anything, I felt like the wrestlers at ringside were less enthusiastic than usual. Even more energy was shown at Double or Nothing as far as I'm concerned. And then, of course, the other issue was the Matt Hardy thing and having the match continue. And then you had a few unfortunate moments where Matt Sydal botched. But overall, I think it was a really strong show from AEW. The effort was certainly there. It was probably the weakest AEW pay-per-view to date. But, I mean, they're all great. All the AEW shows have been really strong. This one was a little less exciting at times, but still good show overall. I'm giving it a solid B. I did think it was a good show. Not AEW's best presentation overall, but it was still a good show. Gary says this show was great, but not better than last year's All Out. Solid B+. What did you guys think in the chat room? Let's hear your letter grades for those of you that did tune in for the pay-per-view. Lewis with an A-, Daniel with an A-, and Luis Ortiz with a C D. Ross 2 with a B. Caleb Jacobs with a $2.63 super chat. Thank you for that, Caleb. Gives it a B+. Calvin Bowman with a B+, and Jose with a B. Dylan Hensley with a B+, and Kim Hall with a B. Hamp says I fell asleep, so C+. Jeff Meacham says B+, damn near A-. Well, there you go. Jeff, pretty high mark for AEW despite not being happy about the Matt Hardy thing. Ken Terminated by DQ with a $5 super chat says, do you think AOP will be in AEW? Some critics don't think they will fit. I disagree. I'd love to see him with Santana and Ortiz. What do you think, Rift? I think it's certainly a possibility. They could end up in Impact. There's probably a lot of options for them. The big concern, though, is can they stay healthy? I mean, one of the things that hurt their WWE run, first of all, getting rid of Paul Ellering was a big mistake. The other issue was the injuries. They kept getting hurt. And unfortunately, WWE cannot invest in somebody if injuries are a factor. And that's what, quite frankly, happened to FTR, aka the Revival. They came in, one guy got hurt, and then the other guy got hurt. So people were saying, oh, WWE buried these guys and weren't pushing them. They got hurt twice. Each guy got hurt, and it stalled the momentum of the team. And same thing, unfortunately, happened with AOP. And yeah, without Paul Ellering, it hurt those guys. Paul Ellering, I thought, really helped as far as a manager goes. You know, kind of gave that modern day LOD vibe with them, with Paul Ellering out there. And, you know, the AOPP thing, you know, with Drake Maverick, that was the beginning of the end for them. That was bad booking on WWE's part, hurting their credibility. So yeah, that you could put blame on WWE for. Gary with a $2 super chat says, not a lot, but wanted to share this to you and Caitlin. Thank you, Gary. I do appreciate that very much. Thank you guys for your super chats tonight. I really do appreciate it. And thank you for staying up with me as it's almost 1 o'clock in the morning. I am a little concerned that maybe there wasn't as much buzz about this AEW pay-per-view. Not a huge turnout in the chat room. We'll see how the overall views for this video goes. Caitlin was watching it with me, and she did not want to stay up for it. She tapped out about halfway through. So I don't know what that means as far as like mainstream interest goes or casual fan interest goes. Caitlin, she does follow wrestling pretty strongly, but she's lost interest in recent months, and even AEW could not keep her invested for the entire show. So make that what you will. Thank you guys so much for your viewership and support. We'll see how AEW does on Wednesday. They're unopposed again. They're coming off this pay-per-view. Will they be able to crack 1 million? I guess we'll find out. We'll see if Dustin has the Midas touch, the golden touch, to get 1 million viewers overall for AEW this Wednesday. It's been a while since they've hit 1 million. Can they do it? We'll find out this Wednesday. I'll be doing the live recap for that. I'm taking Sunday off. This will be my first day without a live stream. It'll be nice to have a break, but I'll be back on Monday, and we'll keep the ball rolling again for the week. Subscribe, tell a friend, give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. The thumbs up help with the views also, apparently from what I've heard. So if you can, take a moment and give this video a thumbs up. Spread the word. Take care, everybody. Have a great rest of your weekend. Be safe, stay positive, and I will see you all next time.